Welcome to RegTalks, a podcast dedicated to the ever-evolving world of fintech, RegTech, and financial regulations. My name is Maggie Maspero, and I'm the head of brand and communications and Know Your Customer. If you've ever listened to RegTalks, you will know that usually it's not me behind the mic, but it's Claus who is our CEO and co-founder. Usually I'm the one taking care of the production, which is something that I absolutely love. But this one is a bit of a special episode, and the reason for it is that we are celebrating International Women's Day. Let me spend just a few words here. So, whenever March the 8th comes around, it's not uncommon to hear different opinions about the purpose and the practical impact of this global initiative. However, I think it's also undeniable that this date helps us make sure that we take a moment, we check our progress, we have an open conversation about the current situation, and also, and arguably most importantly, set some goals for where we want to do next and what we want to prioritize next. I think it's a bit like blocking your calendar for a task, something that you know is incredibly important and that you should definitely make time for. So for this special episode, we have decided to ask ourselves a few questions that we thought are important and that we think can help us move forward as a community and as an industry. To do this, we have checked in with some very interesting and passionate women, both in our industry and within our team, and we've picked their brains on a few different things. If you've been listening to RegTalks, I have no doubt that you will recognize some of our previous guests. So, without further ado, let's start with the first question. And that is, what is your wish for women in RegTech in the next year? Here's what our guest told us.
I think what I'd like to see in the next year is a continued effort to bring more women into RegTech. Although over the past 4 years, I have seen that those steps have been taken. And certainly here at Napier, we have seen the percentages swing in favour of women. And we're looking at only 33% of our employees being men currently. However, there is still a shortage, I feel, of women in leadership roles and board roles. And that is something that I would really like to see start to change. And I feel it's something that we've been repeating for years now. But without that diversity at the top level of a company, the thinking and behaviours will always remain the same.
Fintech and RegTech today continues to be a male-dominated industry where women are still in the minority. I think the global average is that just about 30 or 32% of the workforce in Fintech and RegTech are occupied by women. And this is a very small number considering the talent that women have in this space of regulatory compliance and technology combined. So I would encourage more women to take up the interesting and challenging roles that Fintech and RegTech have to offer and break those gender biases that exist in this field. I also wish that the women who are already working in the RegTech fintech space and contributing phenomenally towards advancement of this sector, I wish that they get more acknowledged for the good work that they have been doing. And this will encourage, motivate and open up more roles for women in the fintech and RegTech world.
Maggie, I wish for all women to continue trailblazing in the tech world and to continue paving the way for all young women who have a dream to be tech CEOs, directors, coders. The world of tech is always progressing, and so are women's ambitions to strive in an industry that in the past may have been seen as a predominantly male industry.
I wish there's more networking community for RegTech women so we can share challenges encountered and support each other. On top of that, providing a voice for the female perspective of our rapidly growing, changing, and influential industry.
So I think I'd like to continue to see more representation of women in senior leadership teams. There's still a lot of senior teams, including in that investors and advisors and non-executive directors who are men. And bringing in that diversity of thought into the senior leadership teams, I think can only help in terms of making products better, but also providing that broader view of the market. There's a lot of very senior experienced women in compliance and regulation with huge amounts of knowledge. So open up your leadership and your advisory boards to some of those women.
My wish for women in the industry in the next year is that we take more seats at the table and create a more diverse environment for people with all kinds of backgrounds.
Next up, we asked our wonderful guests to tell us a bit about the women in the industry that inspire them and even asked them to, shout out to some of these inspirational women. And this is what they told us.
I started my career as a banker in India, and this was at a time when a majority of the banks in India, which included the domestic banks as well as foreign banks operating in India, over 70% of them had women leaders at the helm who were heading those institutions. And this was hugely inspiring for me, who was a 20-something-year-old at that time, just started my career. And my early years were shaped by watching these strong, accomplished women who had broken all glass ceiling in an industry which was primarily male-dominated at that time. In the last 22 years that I have been working in this compliance and RegTech world, again, there have been several women who have inspired me, who have nurtured and mentored me, and their influence has shaped my perspectives, my thought process, my way of working. In today's times, again, I draw a lot of inspiration from global leaders from the compliance world. For example, Janet Yellen, who heads the US Secretary of Treasury, Ursula von der Leyen, who heads the European Commission, Nicole Rose, who's the CEO of Austrac. And I draw inspiration from the way they are tackling compliance and financial crimes on a daily basis, how they have been encouraging the use of technology, data, and collaboration in bringing more effectiveness and efficiency into this compliance space.
Well, I'm really lucky in that I get to interact with lots of fabulous women on a regular basis through RegTech Women, which is a professional network that I co-founded with Lucy Hemmons from 10X. So Lucy is absolutely one of those inspirational women, but a shout out also to Sarah Sinclair, Jane G, Sarah Yeung, Bronwyn Gray, Livia Benesty, Ellie Murray, Kate McEwen, all of whom are doing great work with us in RegTech Women. I think there's another couple that spring to mind. One is Deborah Yeung, who is the CEO of the RegTech Association in Australia. She's doing awesome things to further the RegTech industry in that country and beyond. Donna Bales is doing something similar in Canada. So those are another two that I take a lot of inspiration and encouragement from.
I'd like to give special mention to Dr. Janet Basterman, Napier's Chief Data Scientist. Janet is leading our AI program and the research and development into how we can best apply AI for anti-money laundering software.
In the past few years, one woman that I admire greatly is Anne Bowden, CEO and founder of Starting Bank. She had a vision of the future of how digital technology could revolutionize the banking sector and has excelled in her vision. Starting Bank is a force to be reckoned with and continues to be an industry vanguard. Also, my fellow colleagues here inspire me every day with their intelligence, their drive, motivation, and passion for their job and this industry.
Last but definitely not least, we also asked about practical steps that we can take as an industry to promote and retain women's talent. This is what they told us.
I think this is a really difficult question. We've been hiring at the moment, and it's really hard even to attract women to apply for roles. And I think it's about making sure, there's so many practical things that you can do kind of in the recruitment process, in your staff retention, in flexible working. I think one of the things I would absolutely highlight is working in a smaller organization gives you, like a startup or a scale up, gives you some more of that flexibility over your time. And I think now working from home, hybrid working again adds that flexibility. So making sure that you have family friendly working hours and create that kind of culture, I think is really important. And that benefits not just women, but that benefits men who also have families and children and other caring responsibilities. I think it's also important to make space for the women that you do have in your teams and make sure that you listen to them and you give them those opportunities to share their views. I think as women, we're often afraid of being labelled aggressive or overconfident or strident, but actually I think we should reframe that and say, well, these are women who are sure of themselves and who have a huge amount of value to add. And those aren't negative labels, they're positive characteristics and qualities that we should embrace in ourselves and in other people. And I think the final thing is about articulating what's good about working in the RegTech and the FinTech industry. It's about making a difference There's a lot of purpose behind a lot of the RegTech companies that I work with on a daily basis. You speak to the founders and their mission is really, it's catching the bad actors, it's being compliant, it's about making the financial system safer. So knowing that you're going to be a part of a purpose-driven business, I think, is also something that will be really attractive, not just to women, to men, but, I think it's articulating some of those values, I think, is really important to attract more women into the industry.
Well, I think it starts with hiring and making sure our bias is in check, but also fostering an environment where flexible working is an option.
I think listen more, communicate more, and engage more. I feel it's really important to see and hear more women speak at events, partake in promoting the fintech industry. In my opinion, this will really inspire other women to follow their lead.
There is a lot of women talent available in the industry today. Yet in the RegTech world, women comprise just over 30% of the entire workforce. Now, this is a huge gender gap, 30 to 70 of women versus men. And if we have to bridge this gap, there needs to be a conscious effort from the industry participants. Firstly, I believe it is essential to promote equity and inclusion in organizations in order to appreciate and involve women across the entire spectrum, from the top-level decision-making to the execution-level development teams, so that they are involved and included from decisioning right till the implementation levels. Secondly, I think there should be clear career path for women who wish to grow and specialize in the different streams within the RegTech space. They should be allowed to grow and develop without any constraints or biases from the organization. And thirdly, I think women talent must be nurtured, recognized, and celebrated in order to motivate them to continue in this field. Mentorship and award programs go a long way in retaining talent and motivating other women to join them in this field as well.
My huge thanks to Sujata Dasgupta, Sian Lewin, Nicolette Brown, Eszter Keresztesi, Miriam and Kennix Yeung for their wonderful, wonderful contributions. You have been listening to RegTalks, and on behalf of all of us at Know Your Customer, happy International Women's Day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of RegTalks. My name is Claus and I'm the CEO and co-founder of award-winning RegTech provider Know Your Customer. If you liked the episode, please subscribe to the whole series and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us, suggest a guest or a topic for an upcoming episode, please send us a message at info@knowyourcustomer.com or visit knowyourcustomer.com/RegTalks.